bugger. So I have somehow got to trump that, which is going to be reasonably difficult. Not only that, I've got the worst popsy pitch in the day to do it and post-lunch. So I will do what I can. I'm going to talk about the military and what we've been doing recently in UK Ops and give you an idea about how that works for you. So if you're involved in trying to ask for military support, how that works. I think we've been reasonably successful in the recent past. We've delivered quite a lot around things like broken down into environmental support we provided, industrial support, security support, and then some of the fixed tasks that we do. And we've been good. So I plan just to talk about how it's delivered for you, how we go about doing it, how you go about asking for that support. And then we're going to talk, I get the idea about early engagement being the winner. That's the way forward for, to deliver military support if you need it. And I think on the back of our recent experiences involved in responding to UK, we're also going to touch on some of the changes we've done in the military, and it fits what we're talking about here at the meeting today, is about that, just that evolvement and growing what we're doing. So this is the scope of the sort of things I wanted to talk about. We've touched on there. So we'll try and work our way through those in the time we've got. You'll be pleased to know I have also got some good pictures, and just like General Tim, some of them will include a Chinook helicopter, which is essentially all you're here for, which will be good. But it's not all about this sort of stuff. There is more that we do on the ground. It always starts nicely with a couple of definitions. I would suggest to you the second one there at the bottom is what the military aid, the definition of military aid to civil authority is about. The one thing I will point out there is this idea about the Crown dependencies, and it's just not Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, but it also includes the Channel Islands, which in the last 2 weeks or so have really been through the mill with the storm. It absolutely tore in their force at 10, 11 through the Channel Islands. So important part of what we have to do. So that is the terms for the MACA. It is done, as General Tim said, doctrine. There is a bit of doctrine. I brought it with me, General, not bad, eh? Remarkably, 6 millimeters thick of doctrine about how we deliver UK support in UK operations. Extremely good. And I'd like to pretend when you get a good close-up, it has been read. It looks really, so I'm doing better than the British in the Second World War. So I want to talk just first on the structures that we have available for out on the ground. Do not panic. It looks terrifying, but actually with time, it'll become quite clear what we're talking about here. The key things I want just to point out to you is how the structures work, so you can sort of follow what we talk about next. So we've got the good old Ministry of Defence sitting at the top of it, being clearly our grown-ups. What we have here is the people who run it in the UK. So lots of initials. That's the Standing Joint Command. That is the command headquarters set up in Aldershot that runs UK response. So all the soldiers, service personnel sticking injections into someone down in Exeter, they were commanded by that. Lifting sandbags up in north of England, again, were commanded by that lot. So they're the ones who command us. Below them on one side is where I live, which is here, which is the Joint Military Command. So each of the regions, which we'll come on to in a bit, has a Joint Military Command sitting in the region who look after all that so it's Navy, Air Force and Army response on the ground. To add on to that response, we've also got this lot. So this is where we get our troops from, the people doing it. And it includes, as I just said there, the kind of people you'd expect to see. So it's people wearing green who are really cross they're wearing green because they're in the RAF, people wearing green who also really cross they're wearing green because they're in the Navy, and are always seen by the press just being Army, which is extremely good news. But we also get these other people, which the MOD has up their stocks, which are really useful. So the Atomic Weapons Establishment and DSTL, these other assets we have to draw on, and they'll become important later on. So it's a bigger pool than just service personnel that you'd expect to see on the ground. And I'll come back to this one a bit later on as we go. The bit where I live is this bit, and I'm one of these. I'm what's called a Joint Regional Liaison Officer. Terrible word, because no one really knows what joint means, so I never describe myself like that. I always just say I manage the relationship between the local authorities and defence, the wider defence. There's 18 of these splattered across the country, delivering that relationship building ahead of the crisis. So we understand what the ask is going to be like. We know our partners really well. We get on them. I'm in every SCG, TCG, and I'm in the LRF space for 3 LRFs. So I know what's coming with a bit of luck fairly well. We've also got some Royal Navy liaison officers who are doing the same sort of thing. And then, as importantly, some RAF ones. This is my colleague, Wing Commander Pez Coles. He has another job which is about post-crash incident management. So quite a complex, difficult job managing if a defence aircraft crashes about what happens. You can imagine these can be huge areas that need to be looked at and dealt with there. So a really tricky job. But we come as a triumvirate, and it's a really good, well worked up system on the ground. These are the regional points of command that you will be interested in. I would suggest if you're involved in resilience, you should probably be aware who your JRLO is. We've done a recent change in that we've merged a couple of them to give a better, what we've done is we separated out the war fighting bit of the army away from the UK ops bit, which is probably good. It just separates them out to give slightly different areas. So mine down the southwest has always remained that southwest, headquarters southwest. It delivers in the southwest, and it's separate and distinct from people delivering soldiers, service personnel to fight wars. It's a well worked up and efficient system, so I commend it to you. It's a good one. We've also got hidden away in our back pocket the UK standby battalions. So we have essentially 3 battalions worth of soldiers, so some 900 soldiers who are stood by at 12 hours or 24 hours notice to help if things start to go wrong. Clearly with these lot, what we really like to do is to understand something is going wrong and start to bring them up to reducing their notice to move ahead of that game, which is what we're in the poll for doing. Actually, we need to reduce that down to 6 hours. It's now looking like it's coming. Can we go to 3 hours? And then we're really close up to saying, right, go out of the door. So those are the people we use first off. In the pictures there, you've seen them using the flood barriers, doing some fire beating for some wildfires. And then the one that I think we'll do more of is this sort of business, the knocking on doors and that sort of support. So a good system that's in place for supporting people on the ground. That doesn't mean we can't use ad hoc. So if we need to, we can generate people in real short order to deliver something if we absolutely have to. And there's a Chinook. Everyone happy now? Good. The Chinook is there. But these are the other assets we also have assigned to UK operations, which you'll be familiar with, I suspect. So there's the explosive ordnance disposals. That's our EOD teams doing their stuff, and they're on 10 minutes notice to move, which is an extraordinary thing to have a force at all times to deliver that response out onto the ground. We've got the technical response force. So that's a similar sort of thing, but with a bit of a CBRN spin into it. They're out doing their stuff. There's some various Royal Naval assets, and clearly our Special Forces assets, who are also tied to UK. And then the standby aircraft. Damn it. And then this. I want to now just talk about some of the policies we've got in place to deliver that. It should be quite quick and easy just to say, this is how it's done. So we know how we go about delivering this support when you need it. There's some legal reasons why we get out of the door, which are great, which are all of these. So they have the legal right to go and do that sort of stuff. So you're asking for that. The one I really like is this one in red, that we can do it if it's to distress. It's essentially that it's to break glass, get something done to start saving. That's a real great get out of jail card for me, because I can certainly say to our LF partners, yes, we can move people right now to alleviate distress, to save life and those things, which is really useful to push that one through it. We talked earlier about the Civil Contingencies Act. There's definitely legislation in there that also supports what we do, which is really good. So it gives us a reason to be on the ground, helping and supporting where we can. This is quite an important slide. And I think with any presentation, it's the dull middle slide that is the really important one. And this is it, because this talks about some of the issues we now have. So it starts off with Crown Defence, we get that. It's about intent, and then, what we run out of is about the money. And so this is a limited, finite asset. There isn't a great deal of it, and I think we all know that defence budgets get tighter, and therefore we have less that we can throw at a problem, which means we've got to be ahead of it a bit more, and that our colleagues, our partners, have to be better. So they fill the gaps rather than relying on defence to do it, because defence gets tighter and tighter. At a time, it's also getting busier and busier. There are always some great principles of why we can do MACA, and these are them here. So we've got definite need to act. The tasks are clear, and I think in our first one that was the bridge. Really straightforward sort of stuff. The others become a bit weirder. So other options have been discounted, including commercial ones, and I think we've put the G4 security bit in there to hint about what happens in that area where you've got something that stood up to deliver an output for the Olympics, which then fails at the last minute, and suddenly you throw in a load of service personnel to deliver what was actually, I think, for all of us would agree, an extremely successful set of Olympics. The civil authority lacks the capability to fulfill that. And I think, again, EOD is a great example of that. You really wouldn't want your local authority to run an EOD capacity, not because they couldn't, they could because they're good, but it would cost a fortune. And so having people doing that as part of their normal job, because we need them to be doing it as part of their normal job, is really useful to us. So that is a good capacity that we provide. And the last one then, it's about just producing mass, getting enough people to do a job in a short enough time. Clearly, we have formed bodies of people who can deliver that. So that is something that we do as well. The final one, which is written on the bottom and sneaked through, is this idea about the fifth Macca principle, which is the really, really nasty one, which is the one where we're just told to do stuff. And that's really unhelpful because quite often it isn't finessed enough for what is needed on the ground. So we talked in some of the earlier presentations about the local impact. Who are the bearers of the risk? Well, this is them being told, actually, what you need is a load of service personnel coming to help you at this point. Actually, we don't. We've got this under control. Well, here they are because it looks good. Slightly annoying, and we do try to resist where we can. This is the two types of Macca we really sort of deal with. So the nasty one, which is the top-down one, where something happens and then it gets down to generate on the ground, slightly more difficult because hasn't got that finesse-ness about it. The ones which we much prefer is the other way, which is the event occurs, the civil authority asks for it, the lead government picks it up, it rises to the Ministry of Defence, they go for it, and then we force generate to deliver what is being asked for on the ground, which is a much nicer way to do it. We're prepared for both, but that is definitely our preferred option because it fits better. It's a better round peg, round hole business, which is good news. There are some pains about this for sure, because it means that it's an action that has to be done at quite a local level down here. Let's say it's, for the sake of it's 50 service personnel who are helping putting up a flood barrier in Bradford-on-Avon. Yet that needs ministerial sign-off. So eventually it gets to the Minister of Defence, has to sign that off, which is clearly quite a clunky kind of setup for delivering quite a small effort on the ground, which does slow things down, but it does demand that. And it does mean eventually we have to do quite a bit of paperwork to drive that through, which is my job, and we're good at it, and we can do it in really quick time if we need to. Matter of minutes if we know we're coming. 4 hours is a good planning yardstick for something that is pretty urgent. I'm just going to talk through how that happens in this terrifying slide. So this is the slide of death we had in earlier. It actually isn't that bad, and it starts with the incident event happening, and then classically an SCG or a lead government department asking for that support. So that appears there. They ask for that, and it has to then go up into their own lead government departments, who then go, yes, we see this as a request and an ask, and we're happy to support that. They will then talk through COBRA into the Ministry of Defence and into SPO, a bit of our MOD, to go, do you see this as a request? Is this okay? And I clearly will be talking to the other way, going, this is a good request. What they then do is they'll go, yes, we see this request, and at which point we will start to force generate people to that task and going, yeah, we need a load of service personnel. So take, for example, Border Force strike. We were very lucky at that time that one of the aircraft carriers, the spinny bit that drives it through the water, had malfunctioned slightly, and that meant we had a whole crew to play with, which was brilliant. So we were able to take them off their boat and use them. So the Royal Navy tasked to deliver that. The headquarters then has stood up, and our headquarters then takes command of those service personnel, whatever their CAT badge, and then we'll get them onto the ground, delivering response to the crisis. So that's how it happens, and that, as I said, can happen quite fast. So you will see that at the receiving end down here, delivering that effect on the deck. This is actually the slide I got the slide wrong. This is the important one. So it's about spare capacity. So it's this thing saying we generate those service personnel out of spare capacity. If you shrink the size of defence down to the size it is now, there is no spare capacity. If you're a fighting soldier now in the army, you are tasked at 133% tasking. So you are doing your job and somebody else's job, a bit of it. So there's very little flab in that in the organisation at the moment, which means that it comes at expense of defence output. Something has to give if the service personnel are being used for UK ops, and that in turn means that things start to fall over. and that becomes a real issue. What we also do with defence, which is quite good news now, we do charge for this, and there's a great line saying we are reassuringly expensive. So if you do ask for us, it is quite expensive when it arrives. Some things we don't charge for because they're just like EOD, we don't charge for. But if you ask to do a Group 4 security fail support, and we have to provide service personnel to do something that's been, in theory, planned, we will charge you full costs for that. And it is, as I say, reassuringly expensive, but you do get a very high quality output. Another Chinook, this is all good. Going to touch now on some of the recent activity we did, just give you an idea about what we've been up to and what you and I, of taxpayers, have been doing over the recent period of time, and then what we've learned from all of that, which I think is the important bit. We, like you, are driven by this, and it's been a real refreshing. We keep on talking to people how good this is for us, because what drives us about that is this slide. Clearly, at the back there, you may not be able to read those, but that is, as everyone knows, the risk assessment thing. It has been turned into our language, and those ones which are in the white box there talk about the Article 5, so the big proper things you'd expect the army to and the military to be delivering. So it's war fighting and all of that. These ones are the ones that we're more interested in. That top corner there clearly lives as pandemic. We've got chemical attack, industrial action, fuel supply, industrial action, firefighters, and then CBRN, chemical attack. So those are the threats that we're thinking about. And what we're doing is we're always generating comm plans for those, and that's what those sort of comm plans are. Given swanky names, so Rescript was our response to the COVID pandemic. The EOD stuff in there, Opfolis is the sort of plan we have in place if there is a fire strike, to try and make sure we've got enough coverage across the UK for that. And likewise, Op-Escalin. So these are some of the operational names around things that we're thinking about providing as just standing comm plans for everyone. And we're doing that all the time. You can split down what we do into these 6 sort of roles, and understanding, if you want to get a feel for what we're doing. So we've got delivering some command and control, and certainly I'm involved in a bit of that. I will stand up in every SCG, and I'm encouraging the SCG along routes and adding where I possibly can into that. There's liaison, which I'm doing all the time. That's my job, and I do that every day. There's planning. We do a significant amount of planning, particularly with our partners, and I like to get into some of the groups in the SCG, well, the LRF level, some of the planning groups there, trying to be members of that. So I'm a member of the CBRN group and a few others as well to try and drive that. A bit of specialist advice, general non-specialist support, and education and training. So those are sort of groups that we will try and clump defence support into. And I think we do a pretty good job on the whole in all of that. You can then split down into kind of operational themes about what we actually deliver on the ground. There's the industrial action stuff. So during the fire strike, we got a load of the pilots off this aircraft carrier to learn how to do firefighting. And they were, at one point, going to head out in one of these red vehicles and start putting out fires for you, which is, well, they were dead excited about it. Slightly let down by the Fire Brigade Union then agreeing terms and turning that off, which is a bit of a shame because they were right up for it. EOD tasks, I think we're content with that as we're doing. Security tasks, I think this is the Rwanda flights out of Boscombe down. So some of those sort of things that we get involved with. And then winter pressures. This has been quite good. We've got a really tight relationship. We talked earlier with DLUC. So we run a winter pressures symposium each year in the southwest with our DLUC partners, just demonstrating that work through that works really well with us and them. And we've been involved quite a lot in the national power outage, delivering and being part of the discussion around that. In there, and clearly storm clearing just kind of driving it. So that environmental response. I think those are fairly good examples of the sort of things we do in terms of response on the ground. This is what we're thinking about all the time, is kind of where do we then get our next set of tasks from? And so we're doing a bit of crystal ball work to produce these sort of things. So we're definitely all about now looking into adverse weather. So that's our business now. About going in there. Apparently the fire hoods tell us that actually this is a terribly bad thing now to do to wildfires, is to swack it with a beater. All that does is just spread it quickly around, but we're really, really good at that. The rest of those you're pretty familiar with. There's other comm plans we've got here. So the ones, Op Reviver, so that's our run on the national power outage. I'm quite keen, and I'm a member of the Wiltshire and Swindon LRF. their team looking at national power outage. What can we contribute to national power outage response in that area there? Quite an important one, particularly for somewhere like Wiltshire, which has got a third of the army in Wiltshire. You know, we've got to be doing something for them on the ground in there. Opbridge, and then some of those SFE sort of things that we are familiar with. These ones, so we've got some contingency plans for supporting in case there's a prison strike, just to make sure we've got enough capacity in there. The firefighters we've talked about, and that's Escalin looking after fuel pumps. That has been an absolute pain in the arse, because what we've done is we've trained our service personnel to be really good at pumping fuel. And they then go and do that for Hoya or someone who says, listen, you're really good at this. Can we offer you a job? And we're going, now really, we don't need you to be stripping out our workforce, paying them an extra 10 grand or whatever it is to come and do this sort of job, because we need them for other things. So that has been slightly disappointing, that response to that. Not less so with the fire. That was just good fun. They've thoroughly enjoyed doing that. And they went back, because they're jet pilots. They aren't going to turn over their jet for one of these bad boys at any point. This is quite interesting. So this is just shows what's been happening in the Maca world over the last couple of years. Clearly, I don't think we need to talk about these ones particularly much. So you can sense that we are following, getting back to the right sort of level of Maca response about what people are asking for. The one thing that is quite interesting, I think, is the colour of that. So what we've got here is a purpley one, which talks about estates. So that's defence estates. That's buildings, training areas, those sort of areas. Those are the ones we're noticing being asked for more, which is really, really good. We're really happy about that. That's great. Come and use our estate. It's good for us as a taxpayer, somebody using the estates we have to do stuff like that, which is really good. What we haven't got being asked, which we talked a bit about before, is these chunks. So these were the chunks of people we sent in to do planning, particularly into the health organisations, who in many cases absolutely didn't need that. Our experience of that was they were really good. They knew what they were doing and they were delivering well. Okay, they were running on absolute 6 cylinders, ticking over it like mad. But they didn't need us to be wedging in majors or whatever into their organisation going, let me tell you how we do it in the army. Madness, really unhelpful in many cases. Some cases they were brilliant, but they had to have that EQ to be able to do that jump across. In other places, they were really painful. We had to kind of unglue them in many ways out of that. But you can sense here, that hasn't been happening now. We're right down to this sort of level, which is a good place to be. Much happier with that. So that's a progression in the right sort of way in responding to COVID. A bit of recent activity it has been this. So we sense that we are not being slack. We've been pretty busy here getting involved in all of these. Storm Arwen was pretty fierce for us. We did quite a lot of that. I don't know if any of you saw, so one of the bits I look after, that, Gloucestershire, Avon and Somerset LRF, and Wiltshire and Swindon LRF, and my sunshine posting is I also look after the bailiwick of Jersey. Just one of those strange anomalies, but it does mean that we're really focused on what's been happening in Jersey. We always are. So we look after both the bailiwicks. The other guy who works with looks after Guernsey. They had a really horrible gas explosion which blew up a couple of flats, really nasty, and we were involved in looking after managing that afterwards, using a bit of defence estate to put all the recovered items, and they do an extraordinary job of fingertip searching through the flats to pull out anything that might be recognisable in terms of possessions, all that, and that was then stored in the Army Reserve Centre, catalogued, offered back to the families, and then catalogued and then parked away somewhere if it wasn't taken up to be reoffered in a certain period of time. Really extraordinary job about recovery, and we were really pleased that we had that space that we could hand over to them, which was about 600 metres away from where the gas explosion happened. And that was a terrible day for them because they'd had the Grand Vaux reservoir flooding, and they'd had one of their fishing vessels hit by the ferry, all in a couple of days before Christmas, really battering the people of Jersey. But so we got stuck into that. And then we had the winter, we had a run of those industrial actions that we stood service personnel for. Border Force, we were we were stamping passports, mainly in Border Force up at Bristol Airport. It's got to be said, after I think you've stamped your 6th passport, I think you've got everything out of that joy you possibly can. There's nothing more to gain from that. But they did a great job. That was the Navy personnel again from this ship who came down. They did it on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. And you're going, you stinkers. What a day to pick for these episodes. What was really good was that the Navy, because they had quite a large crew, were able to say, okay, does anybody live near Bristol? Okay, we're going to send you, which was really great. So they could do a half day at home, sprint up to the airport, deliver that task, and then go back in the afternoon. So really, really good bit of work by the Navy. And that's because they had a big enough pool to draw from, so it didn't completely ruin their Christmases. What we've also done in Rescript, we talked a bit about Rescript before. We were fully engaged in Rescript, and it was certainly, in my role, remarkably rewarding. We did a load of stuff in there. Support to ambulance service, vaccination program, absolutely brilliant. I went down to see a load of Royal Marines sticking injections into people in Taunton. So these huge, burly, scary-looking Marines jamming these needles into people. It was great. They loved it. And I think, I don't know if any of you were injected by a service personnel. Was it quite good fun? Yeah, they enjoyed it. And lots of defence estate happening there, and haulage testing. So all of those things we were delivering, and it was absolutely engaging the whole of defence to deliver that. But I sense we got to the end of it, and it was hard graft. I think we all got that. Yes, it was, but it was rewarding at the end of all of that. We also at the same time pick our way through this. So we've delivered a lot of service personnel for this. We were involved in this one, the G7 down in as about annoying a position you possibly could, right at the tip of Cornwall, nearly impossible to get to. All of those things we were all part of. And then last winter was fierce in the UK ops space. We absolutely didn't get a break of going through all of that. And I sense we're sort of beginning to touch that a bit again this winter. I'm hoping like heck we won't, in theory, fingers crossed, have a bit of this going on and the ambulance strikes going on. We're not seeing that as yet, which is thankful. So we're left with just looking after storms and all of that. Just want to talk about this last bit then. So we've learned a couple of lessons from there. So this structure, I think is broadly fit for purpose. It's proven that it works. It's delivered all of those things we've talked about, which has been great. What has changed is we're going to just do a bit of this. So this is my headquarters. Don't worry about it. What matters is that what we're doing is we're sticking in some extra people. Now, in an army that is really, really tight, because taxpayers, this is money being well spent, it's really tight. There's no slack in the system at all. We're being given some extra people, and these, the green ones there, are regular service personnel being assigned to our headquarters. The one I'm really interested in about that one is this one. So this is a OR4, so corporal level service personnel, but she's from the intelligence corps. And what that gives us an ability at last to do some thinking about the future. So what we've done up to now, all of those are just responding. So what we're doing is we're receiving those things and dealing with it and getting out there. This now allows us a chance to just have a think about what's coming down the track from us. Really, really helpful. And they can do a lot of work for us about what is coming, and then also feed back to the local authorities about what we're thinking, because we're really good at this. Because we're good at this, because this is about looking at the enemy. We're pretty good at it. We would want to be able to do this and offer it back to our LRF space and go, here's some really good things we're thinking about. What do you think? And offer that back to them. So I think that's a really good one. The other one is I'm getting some more Army Reservists in the team. And they will be essentially act as our recce screen. So what we can do is we can understand what's happening. So we can send these out to be parts of the LRF space. They'll get into some of those groups, so the winter weather group, various other groups like that, and understand what's going on so that if the ask comes, we are already alert for it. So it's a really nice, subtle change, but will make a real difference in the LRF space across the UK, because obviously this has been duplicated in all those other local resilience spaces, those regional points of command I talked about earlier. So really heartening change. And it shows a sort of commitment to UK operations that I think is really good news, that we're kind of going, yeah, we're willing to put people into these posts, and it's costs us money. That's obviously tasks they're having to deliver. It's service personnel being used in this sort of role, and I welcome it. It's a really good change coming on in the UK defence. There you go.
We're good. Oh, thank you. If I get burned. Oh, Rupert, thank you very much. Please come and join me, and Tim, if you will come and join us as well. I had a little moment there, actually, on several things. I think the need to understand fully how MACA works is so crucial. And we needed that. We needed that. The other thing that really got me on a very deeply personal level, I don't think Rupert knew this. I was an advisor on the Jersey operation for the personal effects. And one of the things that made, as many of you know me know, sometimes you have to make a real fight for the case for the personal effects. People will say, it's too much time, it's too much money, where do we take them? And straight away, the military aid said, take them there. And I don't know that that operation would have happened without that aid. And if you know anything about our field, you will know the value of those tiny items. And it also meant that they could be taken to a very safe place, a very secure place. And it was multiple flats, and 41 further families were decanted from the areas around, and all of those personal effects have been restored. And I've always known about how MACA works, but it was such a great example of going, it's there. One thing I would say, and quite rightly and quite understandably, is what they can't say is, it's there, take it as long as you need it, because you needed it back operationally. So one of the questions very early on, like we all do with our liaison officers, is we're looking at exactly what the offer is. But that is an example. I'm so grateful for you for raising that, because it's an ongoing operation. The first anniversary will be in about 2 weeks' time, and the aim is that all of the initial discussions about whether items are returned or stored will be completed by the first anniversary. So that really touched me. Thank you very much.